Leadership for sustainability. This requires leaders with extraordinary abilities. These leaders who can read and predict throughout complexity, think through complex problems, manage groups in dynamic, adapted organizational change, and have emotional intelligence to adaptively engage with their own emotions associated with the complex problem solving. The complex and dynamic nature of interpreting who and I what in way organizations should be sustainable means that leadership for sustainability requires leaders with extraordinary skills. In the leadership styles linked to CSR, Wallman and Siegel agree in their chain of leaders. Empirical studies of CSR have largely ignored the place of the business leader in the implementation of CSR initiatives. In this letter, Wallman resists the usefulness of purely value-driven CSR of managers, personal value-driven, arguing that managers are not accountable to society but to shareholders of the company, and furthermore argues that the managers have no way of knowing the true needs of the stakeholders. Another is Walumboa. He also found that authentic leadership, where the leader's behavior maintains its integrity with the leader's personal values, has strong correlations with specific job outcomes. This research used their own questionnaire to measure authenticity and defined this leadership style as a pattern of behavior that builds on and promotes both positive psychological capacities and positive ethical claim to foster greater self-awareness himself and internalize moral perspective, balance information processing, and relational transparency by leaders who work with followers, promoting positive self-development. In the leadership in complex environment, focus on describing a framework for effective strategic leadership in dynamic environments. Hypercompetitive and increasingly complex environments have given rise to need to deal with extensive amounts of information where continuity of existing business operation might not assume there be increased demands of skill of the leaders. In complex systems, in the leadership theory, this theory reflects the dynamic nonlinear conceptualization of organizations and complex adaptive systems and described by Metcalfe and Beans. The place of leadership is in complex systems. In this theory, human systems self-organize to be complex systems, and if they also adapt to their environment, they are termed complex adaptive systems. In the leadership effectiveness in complex system theory, in this theory, all the system level measures inevitably attempt to look how the organization links to its external environment. However, the focus is primarily through market and financial measures due to its strong link with the RBB to the firm. In the leadership involving sustainability and evolution of human ability, every knows that the profit is necessary for human survival. Without large-scale adaptation to a dramatic climate alter the planet here, it seems logical that organizations can ahead of this problem and adapt with have more highly involved human systems and one more highly involved links between the human systems, the organization, and in this external system, they may also have more highly involved leaders who are better navigators of complex environments. Finally, this examination of the existing disagreement and confusion over the multiple leadership styles related to the successful implementation of sustainability in organization has found that the solution lies in the complex nature of sustainability itself. In fact, the difficulty of the problem relates to the fact that the result of multiple layers of complexity. The complexity is to sustainability, the complexity of complex problem solving, and the complexity of leadership itself.
Well, good morning. I'm going to talk about the sustainable restaurant chain, Wok. Well, during the second part of the course, we studied why it is important to know how the operations of our businesses affect the environment and the stakeholders like interest. And Wok gives us a clear example of how sustainability is applied to businesses in real life. Well, as we know, Wok is an Asian food restaurant chain that since the beginning has tried to offer high quality Asian cuisine at affordable prices. Since its origin, the chain has had present that its operations should have impact over the environment and the communities it affects through its operations. But the whole case is based on the solutions that what had to develop in order to achieve its growth and sustainability objectives. Within the strategic plan that this company had for 2012, it was planned an expansion to other major cities such as Medellin, Cartagena, and Barranquilla in order to increase the sales and therefore offer the profits. However, this expansion jeopardizes the environment as it was not ready to support and hold the increase in the supply demand. So, in order to deal with the sustainability problems and an incremental cost problem, WOC developed some strategies that besides solving the past mentioned problems also gave it more control over the quality of its products. The fact that this fact like help the company to proffer better quality in the dishes. Among these initiatives, we found the first one, the legal crops replacement. This initiative was developed in the Pacific region and consisted of replacing the illegal crops with coconut palm trees. As a result, WOC not only gained a reliable supplier but also contributed to reducing the employment and increasing the investment in this region. The second initiative consisted of including national fish into the menu as there was a worldwide scarcity of tuna. WOC negotiated with local fishers and taught them better packaging, conserving, and fishing practices, which in the long term make them more competitive and effective. The last initiative we found consisted of making a deal with a harvester in Bogota's savannah. With this deal, the harvester was instructed into better harvesting techniques and became Wok's vegetables major supplier, something that is very convenient taking into account that agriculture is one of the country's most unpaid like unsupported activities.
Good morning. Today I'm going to present the main ideas obtained from one TED Talk given by an Oxford economist, Kate Raworth. According to her, it is time to think, to imagine the shape of progress, because today we have the economies that need to grow, although they don't make us thrive, and what we need is to thrive here together in the century. And the answer is like a donut. Well, GDP, gross domestic product, it is just the total cost of goods and services sold in a year. It was invented in the 1930s, but it became the goal of policy making. Today, in the richest countries, governments think that the solution to their economic problems lies in more and more growth. Rostow, in his book The Stages of Economic Growth, states that all economies need to pass through five stages of growth. First, traditional society, where a nation's output is limited by its technology, institutions, and mindset. Second, the preconditions for takeoff. Third, takeoff for the drive to maturity, where you can have any industry you want. And the fifth is the age of high mass consumption, where people can buy all the consumers goods they want. The metaphor in this story is the plane, but this plane is like no other because it never lands. There is an ever rising line of growth. What to do when an increase in real income itself loses its charm? The author asked this question, but he never answered it. So here we are, flying into a rising of mass consumers, which economies that totally depend on growth because we are financially, politically, and socially addicted to it. The lesson here is that our economies must be regenerative and distributive by design, and we have a great opportunities of making that happen. So 21st century challenge is to meet needs of all people with the means of this extraordinary, unique living planet, so that all living beings can thrive. Progress on this goal isn't going to be measured with money. Donut might actually turn out to be good for us. That hole in the middle is a place where people are falling short on life essentials. They don't have the food, healthcare, education, political voice, housing that every person needs for a life of dignity and opportunity. We cause climate change, we acidify the ocean, a hole in the ozone layer, pushing ourselves beyond the planet boundaries. Therefore, this challenge requires no longer the ever-rising line of growth, but a place for humanity, thriving in dynamic balance. But now we are far from balance. Looking in a hole, you can see the billions of people worldwide still fall short on their most basic needs, risking irreversible impact of climate breakdown and ecosystem collapse. This is our selfie. Now we should ensure that healthcare, education, finance, energy, political voice reaches and empowers those people who need it most. Nothing in nature grows forever. Things grow and they measure, and it's only doing so that they can thrive for a very long time. We urgently need financial, political, and social innovations that enable us to overcome this dependency of growth, so that we can focus on thriving and balance within social and the ecological boundaries of Donut to make a better world.